Hello everybody, welcome to my first information video for Smalland. This is a video giving tips to new players on what to do when you first start out. Now initially you start talking to a character called Hildred, or should I say you need to talk to a character called Hildred, right near where you first join the game, so it's relatively straightforward to get into the world. He basically tells you that you've been attacked by a hornet. This is your first indication that things might not be quite what they seem, and you kind of very quickly get the impression and the truth of the matter that you are an extremely small fairy. You have antenna is one of those giveaways. So this is the hornet. Absolutely massive. There is a bit of a scale issue with this game, but we're not going to get into that in this video. One of the very first things that you really need to focus on is using your pixie sense. Now on PlayStation that is the L1 button, and it does give you this kind of detective mode to highlight all of the interactable elements of the world. The first thing you're going to want to do is gather absolutely everything. That means this amber, it means the wood and the sprouts. Now when you do that, it will unlock a load of craftable items, so you'll get your fire arrows and pet whistle, your builder's hammer, wooden hatchet and wooden club. All of those are extremely important. I say that, one isn't, and that's the pet whistle. Now do be careful to avoid water. Your character cannot swim and you will very, very quickly drown. When you drown, you'll drop all of your items initially. I will go into that later on. Now, combat in this game is relatively forgiving, but can be quite difficult to master. There's two ways of tackling combat. There is the perfect parry type and there is the dodge type. Perfect parry is the better option because first off it uses less stamina and it also negates all damage and stuns the enemy. Dodging is also valid, but as I say, uses stamina and it doesn't stun them. Now you get these owl effigies throughout the starting area. You don't get them later on. This is just to get you kind of inducted into the game. They don't give you enough information to my mind, so that's basically the purpose of this video. But we need to head to this guy Hearn, who as you can see is a relatively long way away. Well, it seems that until you see the scale of the map. So first and foremost you want to pick up as much as you can. You want to create all of the items, so make sure you've got the resources to do so. All of the things that you can craft in your inventory, do so immediately. So that's your hatchet, which will allow you to cut down very basic items to gather more fibre, basically. Your builder's hammer, which allows you to build basically your base, and a torch so you can see in the dark. Try and arrange your hotbar, which is the bar across the bottom of the screen, but it's across the top when you first go into your inventory. Try and arrange that so it makes sense to you. You do have to use the left and right buttons to highlight the item that you want to actually interact with and press up to equip it. You have a compendium and a codex. Those are quite useful because they tell you what items can be built. That's in the codex, and the compendium includes all information that you've gathered from the world so far. Now, as I said a few seconds ago, the pet whistle is pretty pointless. You can tame pets a bit later on, but they die extremely quickly, and in my 50+ hour game, I don't use them anymore. Now I told you about the hatchet cutting down some things to get fibre. They also used to gather these edible mushrooms. Now food is quite scarce early game, so make sure you do harvest all these edible mushrooms that you come across because they are going to be your primary source of food initially. You can eat roach meat, and I say roach meat, it's actually from beetles and things. You can also eat ant heads. Sounds disgusting, but they do make ant skewers. You need a fire to do that, whereas these edible mushrooms you can use straight on. Now try and fight every enemy you come across, don't run past them, A, because they chase you and in most cases are faster than you, but also because A, it teaches you how to fight each of the variants, and practicing on these slightly easier early level creatures is pretty important. But also it gives you a load of resources which unlocks extra items that you can craft, and that is going to be really, really essential starting out. So as you can see, it's just unlocked a healing patch. Now, to be fair, the healing patch is not worth the cost, and the Behead trophy is just a cosmetic thing, but there are some that will unlock some really useful items. Another thing that you can pick up for food is blackberries. Now you find those lying around on the floor, pick them up whenever you see them, because not only are they good early game, but late game they can be used to create a lot of quite high level items like blackberry pie, for instance. One thing that you find in the world that you might not initially know what to do with are bottle caps, and you will also find, and I will show later on, screws. Now they are used for making some early game equipment, I'm going to say, like the stone cutter, but late game you can also use them to melt down to turn into iron scrap, which can be used for some quite late game stuff. Now so far I haven't built a base, and there's a reason for that. The first place that you end up going to Herne, there is a great tree right next door to you. Now the great trees are where you build your bases, but do be careful. You have to climb right to the top to actually unlock them. Now if you don't, and you find this little platform here, which will be important later on, but if you talk to this gnome and say you want to claim it, until you've actually built an encampment on top of one, you have to climb to the top. So if you see this platform and you haven't got an encampment, you can kind of ignore it, which is a little bit annoying, but it is a mechanic that I think they've made you challenge yourself to try and get a base. While you're at this tree, go and speak to Herne. One of the reasons is he will actually unlock a couple of armor sets for you. One of those is the padded armor, and it's one of the best armors in the game for cold resistance. Now cold resistance is essential when you get caught in a storm if you are too far from your base, but it's also really important for winter because there is a full season cycle in this game, so you want to make sure you're as protected as possible. Now you used to be able to craft these at Herne himself, but now you cannot. Even though it looks like you can, notice there were no items appearing in my inventory, and after you exit the screen it says you've unlocked the different types of armor and you craft them at the workbench. Now once you are climbing the great tree, just be very careful, because once you actually get up there, if you mistime a jump, you will fall to your death. And when you fall to your death, initially, you will drop all of your items. Now, there is a way you can combat that. When you get back to your body, you will find a gravestone. Now, it's not where you've fallen down the bottom. It appears at the top where you fell from, which is quite a nice thing to do. It means you don't have to go traipsing down to potentially the bottom of water or anything like that. However, I would advise you to go into the settings when you first start and select keep inventory on death. Make sure there's a green dot in that, and also disable building weather deterioration. You can change these at any time, but once you're starting out, you want to make sure that you keep all of your stuff when you die. Now, to be honest, because I don't have much time playing games, I actually keep that on all of the time. But you can turn it off if you find it too easy. It does make it a lot more punishing if you drop everything in your inventory and have to go back to your body. Now making your way up the tree does take a long time, so I have sped this up to 8 times its normal speed. So you get to the top, and once you get to the top you will find another platform very similar to the one at the bottom. And once you get to the one at the bottom, at the top, sorry, you go and speak to the gnome again, and you can claim the Great Tree. Now this means you can now build a base and you can travel wherever you want up and down by a hot air balloon which is attached to the side of it. So once you've claimed this tree, I advise you build a very small base immediately, and the reason for that is a storm could happen. B, you want to make a spawn point, because if you don't make a spawn point, you will spawn right back at the start again. So you'll spawn basically with Hildred right at the start. So as soon as you've got your great tree, make sure you do craft your base. Now I make mine 4 squares wide, but that's just my personal choice in effect. Now when you're actually laying your foundations down, there are 3 arrows. They determine the orientation. The green arrow by standard points towards the front of the item. So what you want to make sure is that the front of your walls is actually facing inwards, because that is the inner wall. The front is always what you're seeing. So that's my base fully constructed. Now inside my base I want to put some interactive items. Those interactive items are a torch. Well, that's a decoration, but that's so when it goes dark outside you still have some light. You don't have to do that, but I find it very useful. The next one is a bed, and the reason I craft the bed is because that is your spawn point. Now once you've crafted it, you do have to press triangle on it to activate it as your spawn point. And also craft a workbench. That is essential because that's where you're going to craft most things and repair most things. And it also unlocks the stone cutter, which is going to be extremely useful for some, well, relatively advanced materials. Make sure you get a chest as well, because you are going to start gathering a lot of stuff initially and you want to put it somewhere so that you don't run out of space. And a campfire so that you can cook those lovely ant heads. So we're going to make an ant skewer, which basically uses the ant heads and puts them on a nice skewer. Make sure you put some fuel. Now resin is one of the best ones. It's quite abundant in the starting area. There are better later on, but just use your resin initially, because around this tree there is a lot of it. Repair all your items as soon as you can. If they go below half health, you then have to use materials to repair them. If they're above half health, then they are free to repair. So that's really important as well. So for everything else, including bandages, I now need fibre. So we take a quick ride down in our hot air balloon, which we now have access to. Sped that up because it does take quite a while, and unfortunately it does show that animation every single time, and there's no way of skipping it, unfortunately. Ignore the fact I got in a fight, I will skip past that. So your initial hatchet will not cut down pretty much anything. It will cut down very, very basic things like your edible mushrooms, and I believe there are some things like poppies maybe. Here we go, more bottle caps. As I said initially, make sure you collect everything when you first start out, including these screws. You cannot collect the key. Just across from this tree there is an owl statue. If you climb up the path to the owl statue, you get some nice free things. You get that on a daily basis, so make sure you do come back here just to get it. It's not always the same things, so it's quite important that you do, at least early game, go back every single day, every single morning at least. And once you work yourself all the way down, just be careful because there is water at the bottom that you do not want to fall into, because as I pointed out initially, you will drown. Now the last thing that I'm going to touch on is leveling up. Strength and intelligence are the 2 main ones. Dexterity, increasing your speed by 0.5%, is not that important. Endurance, your stamina, again, not overly important unless you intend to glide a lot when you finally unlock your wings. And constitution is okay if you want to be a tank, but you only get 1 health per point, so it's quite a point sink. Strength and intelligence being the ones you want to go for. So there we go. that's the tips video. I hope you have found it useful. If you have, then please do make sure you click the like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and make sure you do leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did think of the video. And I will do some more info videos very soon. You all take care. Bye for now.